Hey, what is up, guys, and welcome to another build video. Today we are going to talk about not the fact that I just disconnected while in the middle of this, but we are going to talk about Greatsword builds. We're going to talk about my favorite Greatsword builds, or the ones I use the most, which is basically the mix set build, the Master's Touch build, and various 4-piece Volcano builds, which are honestly my favorite. We're not going to cover every single build here, but just the main ones that I use and that I would recommend, because there are a lot of different Greatsword builds out there, and when Safi comes out, there'll be even more. I do have a Safi Greatsword video. If you are on console, you want to check that out. Safi isn't out on PC till March, so until then, this is what I have to show you. So let's get right into it. First set we're going to cover right now is the mix set build, one of my favorite builds. First thing you may notice is that this build doesn't use the massive chest piece, and it's for a very good reason, actually. It doesn't work. It doesn't work optimally, and trust me, I tried. It just doesn't. It doesn't fit all the decos and skills you need. So what I opted to doing was just using a focus 3 charm and boutique Rick's chest. In the event that you don't have a double agitator deco, what I do recommend is just doing agitator and health, which you hopefully do have, and you'll see that the regular version of this build, or the version I have, only has 2 health. So if you have agitator health, you'll have 3. So it may even be preferential if you just have uh if you have double agitator but want to have more health instead. So this is a very good build for basically anything you want to fight. Narragansett Greatsword has a ton of wide sharpness, so you don't have to worry about sharpening. Next build we're going to cover, though. Next build, Master's Touch build. Now, I will be doing a video. On the Guild Palace version of this build. It's slightly different, but not that much different. But this is how your typical Master's Touch Greatsword build would use. Using the Master's chest piece and the Arch-Tempered Hyostra from High Rank helmet. It should be noted that there is a little bit of flexibility when this comes to this build. I did opt to not use the double agitator deco just to show you how it would look like with just like more common decos. In fact, it's not even using an extra tenderizer vitality deco I have. So I even have an extra level 1 deco slot. You can just put whatever you want in there. If you don't have those combination decos, you can just put that extra health and you'll be set. But this is highly recommended. Like, definitely early end game before you get Guild Palace. The Shara Greatsword is really good, but you do need 4 handicraft for it, so adjust accordingly. Now, the next builds I do want to talk about are kind of my favorite builds, and these are the 4-piece Volcano builds. The 4-piece Volcano builds.
It's time to shine.
Yes, it is. The 4-piece Volcano builds are highly underrated. I would say they're mostly good for solo play, but you can use them in group. You can use them in group play, but you kind of have to adjust your play style in group depending on how competent or overpowered your group is. You'll have to adjust your gameplay accordingly. But for those of you who don't know what 4-piece Volcano does, basically it gives your weapon Frostcraft, and what that does, it gives you a damage meter next to your sharpness meter that gives you damage bonus that's either 10%, 20%, or 30% based on how much of the gauge is filled up. And the gauge fills up whenever your weapon is in its sheath, which is basically whenever you're not attacking with Greatsword, which is really quite often. So it's mostly beneficial to Raw, but it does also benefit Elemental, especially with the 2-piece set bonus, which adds Elemental crit to your weapon. So, having said that, here's some of the builds that I was able to come up with. This is right here, the recommended build. And the nice thing about it is it does not have many rare decos. Well, aside from the Tenderizer Vitality. But you can... No, you need those. I mean, you need those for health. But in the event that you don't have Tenderizer Vitality or Crit Boost Vitality, you'll just have to go with Agitator Vitality and hope that you have at least 2 health. I always recommend at least 1 to 2 health boost. But if you happen to have all these decos, it fits perfectly. 100% crit, all that jazz, assuming you're augmented, by the way. And And this is the 4-piece Volcano build I would recommend. It's non-crit draw. We'll go over crit draw builds in a bit. Crit draw builds in a bit. But I want to go over the regular 4-piece Volcano builds first. So, this next build here, this one is arguably the strongest 4-piece Volcano build. The Rathalos one with it has like 20 hits of purple sharpness, so you do want protective polish on it. But when this thing hits, it hits hard. So that purple sharpness and the elemental on it has about 390 base fire elemental and hits like a truck. You don't need to put as much crit die because the Rathalos Greatsword has a base 25% affinity. So you only need to put in two expert decos, your agitator, and your augments. It should be noted though, if you want to make this build the way I made it here, you will need either 2 handicraft decos or 2 agitator decos. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. This build doesn't work with any less agitator or handicraft, so it's a rather difficult build to make. So either 2 handicraft plus decos or 2 agi plus decos. So good luck. Next build is basically the ice variant of this build. I use this build versus mostly Piostra and Rajang, but it's basically the same build. You need a little more crit die though because it doesn't have as much base affinity. But same rule as before. You either need 4 you either need agitator decos or double handicraft decos. And if you can't make these builds, it's okay. These builds I wouldn't recommend that much. The crit draw versions of these builds are far easier to make, which is what we'll be going over right now. The crit draw version of the Rathalos build, a little easier to make, actually a lot easier to make because it doesn't have any agitator. Instead, this version of the build, I opted to put peak performance, honestly for the sake of making it a little easier to build. So the double attack deco you see in there is completely optional, but I would recommend you actually do need the extra. You do need the extra attack for the extra 5%. So just put any attack deco there, like attack and resuscitate or attack and quick sheath if you want. That's what I would recommend. But this is the crit draw build, and this is probably recommended over the other Rathalos build because it's easier to make, and crit draw is really effective in a lot of situations. So I'd recommend this Rathalos Greatsword build for crit draw, for sure. Next up, we have the ice variant of this build, which is essentially the same, except I opted to have 3 focus because I was able to get a couple more extra level 1 skills, so I was able to get 2 tool specialists, which can come in handy, but essentially the same thing. Should be noted these are also augmented for affinity and health, so that's how you get to 100% affinity for both builds. Well, actually no, for this build, this isn't since it has 3 crit draw, it already has 100% affinity by default. So you would just augment health and element and defense, and that's it. Next build we're going to cover, my personal favorite, the Wyvern Ignition Free Element build. Free Element Wyvern Ignition has 690 fire on it, which is pretty freaking nutty. Now, you don't need to have the double Agitant deco in this build, and I did find that this build actually out DPS'd the Rathalos build. And it has lesser decos. If you don't have the double agitator deco, you can just put in whatever you want. It honestly doesn't matter, really. It's just an extra slot, and you just put in DPS there, or really whatever you want. The only disadvantage of this build, as you can see, is it only has 2 health boosts and only has 2 divine blessing. That is the one disadvantage. And also, in order to get 100% affinity, you do need to augment for affinity, of course, but I did need to also get all that extra attack, and yeah, I think that's good. Yeah, it's good. No, but it also should be noted that I am not using a health augment on this. I opted to use the attack augment on this, but it's personal preference. I'll just do slightly less damage without the attack augment, but health augment is always more comfy. But it's up to you. I just wanted to see exactly how strong this could hit, and this one for me, when I was doing my testing, got me my fastest runs against Tempered Kieran. So it's a really fun build if you miss Wyvern Ignition. Recommend it if you want to be different, like me. Okay, another build I forgot to cover this earlier when talking about just non-crit draw builds. Non-crit draw build. The last three were crit draw builds, so keep that in mind. This is a non-crit draw build with Rajang. I did find that it was actually impossible, literally impossible, to make this build with the Wyvern Ignition. I could not make a 4-piece Lokhande Wyvern Ignition non-crit draw build. It just didn't work deco wise, but I was able to make it with the Rajang Greatsword because it had a level 4 slot there. So this build gets all the way up to 90% affinity, which isn't too bad. But the thing is with this build, it is really deco heavy. You do need 2 double handicraft because you will burn through that sharpness pretty fast, and you will need a double agi for that extra 5% affinity. So if you have the decos, you can make this build. Otherwise, I would not recommend it. And finally, everyone's favorite meta slave build. This build right here is the build you want if you just want to have the most DPS. This is how you would make it. This is the Acidic Shredder, the Acidic Lav, Greatsword Meta Slave build. This is the strongest DPS Greatsword. I never use this build though because number one, the Greatsword looks really ugly. And number two, it's really hard to maintain. So unless you are just a pro, a god, I wouldn't recommend this build. It's doable, but you will lose that purple sharpness more than likely, and you will be sad about it. So use at your own risk. It's really deco heavy, but if you want, here it is. It's the best build. Because math. Okay, but either way, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. These are my Greatsword builds that I've been using on stream. If you have any other build suggestions or have any builds you want to share with me, leave a comment, leave a like. Come to my Twitch channel. I stream every single day. I make builds, I test them out, I do all the things. Stream for like 12 hours a day. And that's it. More videos coming soon. And until freaking next time, I will see you guys soon. And later, Ram Fam.